Fort Knox Depository was built in 1936. The last time a gold vault was opened for someone other than a Treasury Department official was in 1943, when President Franklin Roosevelt visited. Since then, many members of Congress have questioned whether there really is gold in Fort Knox. Today's tour by a 9-member congressional team, headed by Illinois Republican Philip Crane and Kentucky Senator Dee Huddleston, proved it. Crane originally suggested the trip. It takes 3 men, each with a different part of a combination, to open the door of the main vault. The door itself is 3 feet thick and weighs 20 tons. Down another hallway, the individual gold rooms are stacked with the bars running in numerical sequence.
Mr. Chairman, I tell you, knowing that you, for many years, had picked up more and more support for your bill, legislation to audit the Federal Reserve, I wish, truthfully, and it has nothing to do with you gentlemen here today, but I'm telling you that the distrust out here by the American people is as deep and severe as I've ever seen. And it does not only Congress itself, not only the administration, but the Federal Reserve is just at this point at a very low ebb as it relates to trust. And I'm not talking about you personally. You 2 men of high integrity, I know that. But right now, the Federal Reserve is not held in high esteem by many people in this country. I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I have a few short questions, and then we'll finish up. The one thing is, on a follow-up on what Mr. Jones says, is the confidence is very low. But when you speak of independence, and I understand your terms, and I disagree with the need for that, but I understand it. But what people hear when you say independence, they hear secrecy. You know, you're going to keep it from us. And like the point I made at the beginning, the SEC is to pressure companies to reveal information, where the Federal Reserve does the opposite. They want, no, we can't tell anything because it might disturb the markets. But I do have one question. During the crisis, or any time that you're aware of, has the Federal Reserve or Treasury participated in any gold swaps arrangements?
We don't. The Federal Reserve does not own any gold at all. We have not owned gold since 1934. So we have not engaged in any gold swaps.
But it appears on your balance sheet that you hold gold.
What appears on our balance sheet is gold certificates. When we turned before 1934, the Federal Reserve did own gold. We turned that over by law to the Treasury and received in return for that gold certificates.
If the Treasury entered into, because under the Exchange Stabilization Fund, I would assume they probably have the legal authority to do it. They wouldn't be able to do it then because you have the securities for essentially all the gold?
No, we have no interest in the gold that is owned by the Treasury. We have simply an accounting document that is called gold certificates that represents the value at a statutory rate
and still
that we gave to the Treasury in 1930.
And still measured at $42 an ounce, which makes no sense whatsoever. But, you know, the conventional wisdom today says that gold is really not money. We don't want it to be money. I mean, if you're for the gold standard, there's something wrong with you. Yet we hold the gold. And, you know, there have been suggestions made, and I've sort of, encouraged the suggestion. You know, if gold is not money and it's an asset and you don't even use it because it's on your balance sheets and you don't even use it at the real value, would you have a position on this? Why shouldn't the Treasury just sell the gold, give it back to the people? The people had it at one time. Let the people have it. Would you have any objection to that? Would you advise us and say, no, that's not good. We ought to hold the gold. Do you think holding the gold is a good idea or a bad idea?
So I have no position on that at all. That's clearly
no position.
Treasury. It's a matter for the Treasury. It's not within the purview of the Federal Reserve.
Mr. Baxter, would you have an opinion?
My opinion is I agree with Mr. Alvarez.
No position. Well, it's amazing because I've asked questions of the Federal Reserve, the members of the board for years, and whether it's been Mr. Greenspan, I can't recall exactly whether I've asked Mr. Bernanke, but it's always, well, no, we have to hold on to these assets. But if it's not money and we don't need it, we're not going on a gold standard, I mean, I would think that they shouldn't be holding it. The reason I ask that is the truth is gold is money, and people don't throw it away, and people do cling to it. But I would be really, there's a lot of people who suspect, because of this lack of transparency, that there's been a tremendous amount of gold swaps and loans made, and central banks sold a lot of gold after these the last 10 years. A lot of the gold has left the West and has gone to the East. And the central banks that now have positive trade balances, they buy up the gold. There has to be a message in there and a significance, even for those who don't want the restraints of gold. It has to be a message out there that we should look at, because we're in a financial mess. And it has to do with our monetary system, and it's being reflected today in rising prices and a weak economy. And just printing all this money isn't doing any good. All this stuff that's been done for 3 years, and you look at the economic statistics now, they're horrible. And these people who lost their jobs, they're still unemployed. The people who bought stocks in the year 2000, if they held on, they probably haven't even broken even. They probably lost purchasing power. So eventually, I know this is off the subject a little bit, but it is reflected only in that we don't know.
Did anybody steal the gold in Fort Knox?
People, when they don't know, then they get suspicious, and they say, well, it's kept secret from us. Why aren't we allowed to know?
It has been confirmed that Trump is headed to Fort Knox to inspect the gold for himself.
Dollars we're talking about, and when we hear about this money going to central banks and banks that Gaddafi was a part owner in, I mean, this stuff is this really stirs up the emotions of a lot of people. But I do appreciate you being here, and I know that there'll be a lot of questions. There will be written questions submitted, and we'd appreciate your cooperation and send us our answers back. And I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
This hearing is adjourned.
Did anybody steal the gold in Fort Knox? I don't want to open it, and the cupboards are bare.
Maybe going to Fort Knox to make sure those gold reserves are there. That comes under your purview. Do you have any plans to visit Kentucky?
I don't have any plans. I can tell you that we do an audit every year. I can tell the American people on camera right now that there was a report September 30th, 2024. All the gold is there. Any U.S. senator who wants to come and visit it can arrange a visit through our office.
We're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure that...
Well, you know, I've been trying to go down and see the gold and make sure it's all there for about 10 years. During the first Trump administration, I got permission. You have to get permission all the way up to the Secretary of Treasury. And then the Secretary of Treasury said, well, I want to go down there too. And then he said, I want to go down there when the eclipse is coming through Kentucky too, so I can see the eclipse and the gold at the same time. But they came when I wasn't there. So I tried for 10 years. I set up the appointment. And then because they wanted to see the eclipse, they changed the appointment. I didn't get to go down. But the Secretary of Treasury and the senior senator from Kentucky did go down and attest that they believe they saw the gold down there.
So what do you think the problem is?
You know, I think some of them may not think it needs to be audited all the time, but I think the more sunlight, the better, more transparency, the better. Yeah. And also it brings attention to the fact that gold still has value, and implicitly, not explicitly, but implicitly, gold still gives value to the dollar. Yeah. That's why we don't get rid of it. You know, we've got it, the IMF has it, the World Bank has it. Most of the central banks around the world have gold, and it's an implicit trust that the dollar still has some backing.
Test them. So whether this is melting them down and confirming the purity through a fire assay test, or using some other machine to actually test through the bars, like a Sigma Metalytics Precious Metals Verifier Pro model with the bridge, you can test through very, very thick pieces of silver or gold, or something similar. They're going to need to perform legitimate tests on the gold so that we...
What's going on with, tell us about Fort Knox.
Yeah.
It's Kentucky, it's a military base, it's a ton of gold, tons and tons and tons
like
of gold.
5,000 tons of gold or
5,000
tons
of gold are there in the ground, and like this, I mean, it's a very secure thing.
I think we all want to see it. You know?
I'd love to see it.
Like, this is your gold, by the way. It's the public's gold.
Do you think it's not there?
I don't know. But I think
we just want to see it.
Yeah, we want to go see it and just make sure, like, somebody did spray paint some lead or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like, is this real gold? Fight at the bar, you know?
Didn't dent.
But I think, honestly, you know, part of this also is just like, let's have some fun and you know, like I said, all this gold at Fort Knox, it's the public's gold. It's your gold. So, like, I think you have, like, a right to see it.
You want to take a tour?
You know? Yeah. I think we should have a tour. And then the president last night was like, I think he's in favor of it. That would be cool. And then it should be like a live tour. Like, you can see what's going on, open the door, like, what's behind it.
Well, and there's...
You know, I think I'd watch that.
Oh, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I mean, what does 5,000 tons of gold look like?
What does
How
it
big
look
is
like?
that? Is it the size of this?
It's got to be pretty big, you know?
It's got to be a lot of gold.
Maybe there's some other stuff in there, like just walk around, like, I don't know, maybe they got some other stuff in there.
Are you thinking about auditing the Federal Reserve as well, which is obviously
yeah, sure.
Regulatory economy?
In the hands of the people.
Honest.
I have a theory on how this might go down. As many of you know, Fort Knox, Kentucky, is not the only deep gold storage facility that the United States has. They also store a significant amount of gold in Denver, Colorado, and West Point, New York. So, what is stopping them from simply moving gold from these other locations to beef up the vaults at Fort Knox for an audit? Then, once the audit is over, they could just send the gold back to where it was originally stored. I believe they would actually need to audit all three of these locations simultaneously to confirm that all the gold that is supposed to be there is actually there. Simply walking through the vaults and looking at the gold bars is not enough. They must test the gold to verify its authenticity. Whether that means melting the bars down and confirming purity through a fire assay test or using an advanced tool like the Sigma Metalytics Precious Metals Verifier Pro, they must perform legitimate tests. A proper verification process would include testing through thick gold bars to ensure they are not counterfeit or tampered with. Or perhaps this will all unfold as Elon Musk once joked. We go to Fort Knox to check for the gold and it's gone. I wouldn't be surprised, but it's definitely possible. As of this morning, various news outlets are reporting that Donald Trump is considering allowing Elon Musk to inspect Fort Knox and verify that the gold is still there. Will it actually be Trump, Musk, or someone else from Dogecoin looking into this? I don't know, but to me it doesn't matter. I just want to know if the gold is really there. However, this raises another important question. What if the gold is there but it's not even ours? The U.S. has long been a custodian of gold for foreign governments. When Germany requested to have its gold returned, they were denied immediate access and told it would take 5 to 7 years to retrieve it. Even if we walk into Fort Knox and see stacks of gold bars, how do we know they aren't pledged or loaned out to someone else? Once again, we cannot blindly trust the government when it comes to gold reserves. This is exactly why gold should be in the hands of the people. Honestly, I don't know what to make of all this. There's so much uncertainty. Is the gold in Fort Knox? Is it missing? Are they moving gold from other locations just to make it seem like it's all there? If it's there, is it even real? And what if it's already promised to someone else? There are just too many questions, but one thing is certain. Trump is saying he wants to go to Fort Knox and find out what's really going on. I think we're finally about to get some answers. Whether those answers will be satisfactory remains to be seen,